Oh, we're recording right now. Okay, great. Hey there, everybody. Welcome into the webinar. We're just about to get started here. Oops. What is that? Oh, it
It
may be
looks like
like people logging.
Raleigh wire somewhere.
We
It's
just have to sing with it, I think. Yes.
Yeah,
yeah.
Mark, what is that?
And maybe
Oh,
your
oh,
USB or your headphone jack is a little loose and it's probably moving
Oh,
a little bit.
okay, that might be the issue. So we'll make sure to plug Dan's thing
It
in.
went away.
Yeah, let's fix that. Let's just make sure.
I think it was yours
Dan-
because it stopped doing it.
Yeah, okay, it's probably mine. So I'll
Yep.
get going. Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to Sustainable Design Masterclass. We're joined here. Oh, we're super excited to bring this here with everybody. We've got Dan Marquez and Matt Powers here. Neil Spackman's doing some really hard work with the government of Saudi Arabia right now, terraforming, so he needed to be here today. But yeah, we're just super stoked. So for those of you not initiated, Sustainable Design Masterclass is dedicating you to bring some of the top regenerative system designers, entrepreneurs, ecologists, just people who have dedicated their life to creating pathways for people to live. And I had today to bring you some stuff about ocean farming. Now, earlier in the summer, we had Bren Smith on to talk about East Coast ocean, regenerative ocean farming. But now we have Daniel Marquez on to talk about his experience with ocean farming on the West Coast. So for that intro, that dang boop. Make sure you turn off your distractions. Get rid of your Facebook. Throw your cell phone in the sea water because you're not going to need it. You're going to want to be totally present because we're all in this day and age. All right. So I'm going to my mic and turn it over. My bad. Turn it over to Matt. Sorry, Matt.
all right. So much for joining us. This is a real treat. I'm Matt Powers, and I'm a gardener, seed saver, author, entrepreneur, and family guy. And as you probably know, if you know who I am, you know about my book. Things I tackled in my new book, The Permaculture Student 2, was large-scale ocean restoration. And I kind of provided a partial answer and vision of it, right? Because it's a new area, right? And we're constantly learning new things about the ocean. It feels like the problem is, ever complexing. It kind of feels like if you pay attention to the media. And I've been, giving these steps that I had come up with from my book on my book tour, and someone came out of the audience and waited while people talked to me, and waited and said, I've got to tell you something about that ocean part. I got to tell you about something that I'm working on that's truly regenerative. When you showed those lines going across, we're not doing that. We got to actually have them in the ground. And I was like, wait a second, the kelp goes in the ground, and then I'm like, wait a second, of course the kelp goes in the ground. Right. I was like, oh my gosh. And it was like Dan Marquez came out of the woodwork when I was visiting Santa Barbara and speaking, and he provided very quickly in a short conversation the key, and I was like, oh man, of course we can harvest from the ocean if we do it that way. Of course this is going to help more than just, I was thinking about everything goes back into the soil, the ocean, everything, we trap everything. But then I forgot about the land erosion and all the nutrients leaving the land. And he's got all this mapped out, all these major concerns that, I've been paying attention to this probably just like you have for years. We've been all watching, amazing, National Geographic, Jacques Cousteau, all these documentaries of the ocean our entire lives, loving it, Shark Week. And we've been paralyzed. I've been paralyzed, and that's why when I worked on this section, the Permaculture Student 2, it felt so good. Because I was like, this is it. We're actually addressing the elephant in the room. And then when I met Dan, it was like he's the elephant tamer. and he gave me solutions. I'm talking to him and his wife. They're this amazing team. And they're educating me. They're teaching me so much about health. Our body's health, about the ocean's health, but how they're really connected. And they've got this amazing plan. They're helping me adapt my book and take my book to the next level. So I can't say enough about Dan and the message that he brings and the fact that he is tying everyone, he's going around and tying everyone together. He's coast to coast. He's all over the place, and he's talking to everyone. He's working with everyone. He is a linchpin. And the message is positive. The message is huge. So I'm excited about multi-trophic systems and the regenerative hope it brings. And this is Dan Marquez, everyone. So let's start.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you so much, Matt. It's always a pleasure to see and hear you, actually. I love your energy. You have amazing energy. So, hello, everybody. So I'm Dan Marquez, and my wife, Antoinette, and I have a 25-acre ocean lease in Goleta, California, which is a little suburb of Santa Barbara, California. We also have a product my amazing wife has developed from the kelp that we are currently wild harvesting. Pharmersea. So I guess the solution that Matt was talking about is by growing kelp. First of all, I can find there's nothing bad about growing kelp. I mean, I've been looking and trying to figure out, are there any bad side effects of growing kelp to the ocean, to anywhere? And I can't find anything. And I've talked to phycologists about this, and unless oxygen's a problem, I can't find anything wrong with growing kelp. And then eventually we also want to do like Matt was talking about, the multi-trophic system, which is growing kelp with mussels and possibly oysters also for the food part of this. So I guess the other amazing thing that I want to share with anybody or everybody is the ability that kelp has for sequestering carbon. So kelp can sequester 10 times more carbon than any land-based plant or tree, which to me is absolutely amazing. The other thing we're planning on doing, and what Matt kind of hinted to earlier, is unlike Asia and what they're doing on the East Coast, where they're growing a species of kelp that is a single stipe, single blade species. It's called sugar kelp or Grassalia, and they're putting it on the rope. They grow it for approximately 3 months, and then they harvest it. Well, with the macrocystis or giant kelp that's here on the West Coast, we can actually plant that on the bottom. We have about anywhere from 25 feet to 51 feet of depth where our farm is. So our goal is to plant it on the bottom and create an entire ecosystem. Everything's going to show up naturally in any kelp forest that you see will be on our farm. And it's really exciting because of the species that will show up. The fish will show up, the crabs will show up, mussels will show up naturally, actually. So that's what our main goal is. The other piece is we're working with a lot of CSU schools and UC schools as far as we want to be able to provide them area for collecting data. I just got done speaking with the department. The geography department was able to get a large grant. They are able, through imagery, and this is pretty crazy, through imagery, either in the water with drones or flyover with drones, they'll be able to tell the density of the kelp forest, which is pretty amazing, but it gets much better than that. They can also be able to give you a sugar and carbon content of the kelp, which is huge. The sugar content will be huge for the bioindustry part of it, and our biodiesel part of it, and or biofuel, I'm sorry, and the carbon content, you know, is going to be huge as far as when we harvest. So macrocystis lives for about 4 to 5 years, and during that time it's going to be sequestering carbon, and we'll be able to tell which plants are ripe for harvesting because they've sequestered all they can, and be able to, you know, just replant. And that is huge as far as the health of the ocean. So, and of course, another big goal of ours is the health of the ocean. I mean, we're doing this because the ocean needs our help. And, you know, we believe one of the solutions is actually kelp farming. Let's see, what else? Because this is, I could talk all day about this stuff. It's just amazing. I just want to try to get you guys a little bit excited, and hopefully you can start bombing with a bunch of questions about this. There is a very low kind of footprint of this thing too. I mean, I've had people ask me about, you know, what does the farm look like? Is it going to be something you could really see from land? And the answer is no. There's going to be hardly any buoy. We have to put buoys basically just for marking the farm. But other than that, and they're going to be black, and I kind of, you know, dare anybody to be able to see them from the shoreline. They're just really hard to see. So that's the beauty of the ocean farming piece of it, is that it's not going to, you know, make our oceans look terrible. So, but I guess in a nutshell, that's what we're up to, and you know, I'd love to hear any questions from anybody.
Cool. You mind muting your mic?
Oh, no problem. Hang on.
Okay, everybody. Cool.
Hang on, still not muting. Techno problems.
Oh, you gotta press that green button.
I am.
Oh, okay. So, yeah.
All right, there you go.
Okay, folks. So we're gonna do something a little bit different right now. Basically, we're gonna take some questions right now. We've got Dan's presentation is kind of mid email. It's being sent to us, so it's all good. Just in case I'm creating a backup presentation, so we just talk about stuff. But yeah, we're gonna get started with questions early. So if you guys had questions about you know, ocean farming before we even started the webinar, we could field those right now while this presentation gets to us. So I think Gabrielle has a few questions here, so we can answer some of those. And if we still have time, we could have her live call. Like, we could unmute her mic and have her just talk with you one-on-one. So we could do that. So yeah, why don't you go ahead, unmute your mic, and I'll mute my mic.
Okay, I just lost my screen.
Oh man, sorry about this Frankenstein presentation, but he just got his presentation. Yeah, I know. Antoine says he can't hear you, but we're in the same room, so we need to mute each other's mics while the other one talks. Got his presentation in, so he's going to bring that up, and once he has that, we'll answer some questions and we'll get back to the presentation. That sounds great, everybody. Yeah, a lot of good questions from Gabrielle, from Chris. Yeah, holler if anyone has a microphone and wants to call in. We can mark it for later after we fielded some questions. So was that a PowerPoint, or was that like just pictures?
Yeah, I got a PowerPoint up here right now.
Perfect. Here, let me load that up for you.
Okay.
And great. All right. I'm just going to load this up for Dan. I'll be back in a sec.
Okay, awesome. Basically, we got two. We got this one and we got the other one too.
Oh, this is fine. We'll only just load this up for now, and then we can switch over. All right.
Okay, now are they seeing this?
Yeah, they see your screen. Can everybody see Dan's screen, everybody? Yes, people can see your screen.
Okay, awesome. So I was asked to talk earlier this month about basically a new term, is blue carbon farming. So the cool thing is, like I was talking about earlier, is the sequestration of carbon that we can do, that we can farm and collect and sequester. It's just unreal. So basically, we are a 25-acre restorative startup ocean farm in San Diego, California, like I mentioned earlier. There is so there was a study done, and this part's just absolutely amazing. And all of a sudden, I got both things on here. I guess that's okay. Can they see the presentation also? Because I'm in. They can see it. Okay,
yeah,
I see myself on here too now. I'm sorry, guys. I'm just not very techy. So when they're talking about this study, so it suggested that if we farmed approximately 9% of the world's ocean, we could produce enough. We could actually sequester, an amazing amount, up to 53 gigatons of carbon per year. And with that 9%, we could basically practically feed the world and fuel the world by biofuel. It's, like I said, this stuff is absolutely incredible. Yeah, hang on. Sorry about this, guys. Yeah, this again, the carbon farming piece of this thing is amazing. What the kelp can actually sequester, and again, the farm, I want to make sure you guys understand, is something that you're not going to be able to see at all. The possibility to fuel the world, the possibility to feed the world, all this can come from this farming of kelp, and which is going to actually help the finfish industry tremendously also. I get asked every now and then, the question is like, well, why farm kelp? Why don't we just go and wild harvest it? And my basic answer to that is, let's take a look at the finfish industry. What's happened to all the fish? So if we just wild harvest kelp, I think we would destroy the system. And we cannot do that. Again, like I said, the ocean needs our help. We need to be able to farm kelp, to be able to clean the ocean, to pull carbon out of it, and to possibly feed and fuel the world. So that's what I got on this. Is there any way we could upload the other one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. So while we load the other one, can you see the questions on the bottom?
I cannot. Where are they?
All right, let me show you.
Okay.
We're actually 100 miles away. I'm just a clone I sent over. Okay, great. So here you go. So you've got some questions coming in from folks.
Awesome.
So you can look at these, kind of answer from the top. And while we load the other question, while we load the presentation, Dan can answer some of these questions. All right. So you can go ahead and get started answering if you want.
Awesome. So I guess the first one, can we open these up a little more to see them, or how does that work?
Yeah, sure. I mean, is that the presentation?
No, there's another one. Go back to the
email.
Yeah. And soil not. There you go.
Perfect.
That one.
There we go. Cool.
So just some pictures we could put up there too, just to show what we're trying to achieve.
we need permission from Antoinette.
It just gets funner and funner, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Well, let me answer some questions for now then.
Yeah, answer.
Okay, so, and can I blow these up so we can see these a little more?
Yeah, sure. Let me. All right. Can you read that?
I can.
Okay, great.
All right, so fading in and out, that's my end. Yes. Hoping getting the current sequestration numbers and how to. So I'm trying to understand what they. So Gabriella, hoping to get into the carbon sequestration to, I guess, understand. We're kind of cut off a little bit. Let's see. Keeping my producer here busy.
I can give you these headphones.
Oh, okay.
enough booping out in and out.
Oh, they're coming in and out?
Yeah, that's the culprit right there.
Oh, okay. Hopefully that's better, everybody. So help me on this thing again one more time here. So
Okay.
is this spread out as much as you can to see it? Because I'm trying to understand. Is what happens?
No, this is where the question is.
Oh, okay. All right. To what depth can you set up a submerged long line for macrocystis? Does it need to be close to surface? Yes, it does need to be close to surface. That's where the photosynthesis is occurring. And close to surface, I mean, it grows naturally around 40 to 50 feet of depth. It does grow. Sometimes you can find it in deeper waters, but it's generally 50 to 40 feet and in. Also, there's research going on right now, a study going on, where I think it's Woods Hole, Massachusetts, is looking at setting up a system that's going to be like a grid system that's going to be towed around by drones. And the goal is that at nighttime they'll drop the kelp lower because the nutrients are in the colder water, and then during the day they bring it up closer to the surface. So hopefully that answers that question. I'm trying to figure out this question thing here. Hang on one second, people. All right, unfortunately my tech just left the room. So one question here I see is, have I ever worked or interacted with a Dr. Lewis Drool, I guess, from Bamfield, British Columbia? And the answer is no. I'd be very interested in seeing what he does and what his work. Imagine he's a phycologist. So that answers that question. Is this also called lure? Yes, it can be. I mean, there's the scientific. The question is this also called vertical ocean farming? And that answer is correct. There's a few different terminologies out there other than the multi-trophic system, which is the actual scientific name for it. Some people are calling it 3D farming. Yeah. So next question is, how is it harvested, manually or mechanically? For now, we're going to be doing it manually. Once it gets, when you get into hectares of this stuff, there is a boat that's actually set up that, if you can imagine, like a lawnmower, which is just awesome about macrocystis, and if you can imagine just giving it a haircut. So this part of the boat actually is submerged about 3 feet in the water, and it looks like a hedge cutter, and it has a conveyor belt, and it cuts the kelp and brings it online. Now, for the systems that are growing on the East Coast, that's all pretty much manual. It's a Longline System where they bring the line onto the boat and they harvest all the kelp that way. So how do I get down to the other questions here?
Oh.
Let's see.
Basically, just scroll down. So, you can scroll down here.
Oh, okay, I got it
Yeah,
now.
you can go
All
up.
right. All right, so okay, so
I'm almost got some pictures I'm going to print.
So what type of equipment would be required to start seaweed farming? Equipment-wise, basically a small boat, you're going to need, obviously, shovel anchors or sand anchors, depending upon the bottom of the ocean you have there, and how you want to do it, either long line or off the bottom, and also very species dependent. I guess the one major thing about growing, or actually ocean farming in California is going to be the agencies, which are Fish and Wildlife, which that's who you'll get your lease through, and then you have to work with Coastal Commission, Army Corps of Engineers, and the California Quality Water Board also. And these are good people that want to do the right thing. Unfortunately, they are just not funded correctly. I mean, when you look at some of the responsibilities they have, you're looking at one person taking care of the mariculture for the state of California, and then you got one person for Coastal Commission who's looking at the water, and basically these guys need to have a private jet to cover the entire state. So that part of the ocean farming is something that we're working on with the agencies and with the legislation right now to try to see what we can do to help them out, because again, like I said, they're woefully underfunded. So there's another one here that says basically, where is the kelp being grown? At the mouth of stream, depth in ocean. Can you explain how the strategy can be used for Gulf Coast areas? So for California, because we don't have such a protected coast, it makes it a little more difficult. That's why the Longline System actually, as you get closer to the shore, is probably not the best strategy to use because of what the tidal surge will do. And it's interesting about the mouth of the stream. One of my pie in the sky dreams would be, because of what the kelp can do for sequestering not only carbon but nitrogen also, is that everywhere where a river or creek dumped into the ocean, we should have a farm. And like what Matt was talking about, we can actually, are we having problems again here? Okay. We can actually take the nitrogen that's coming from the land and some of the farms and put it back onto the land. So the water will make it, the erosion part, all these nutrients down to the ocean. The kelp will absorb this, and once the kelp's ready for harvesting, we can actually use it for fertilizer, because it makes an amazing fertilizer, and throw that back onto the land. So you just get that whole cycle going. Let's see here. Next one. So question was basically, I've read that kelp is disappearing from the oceans, maybe because of water temperatures going up. How will you protect or project be affected? I guess the amazing thing again about Mother Nature is that Mother Nature is actually adjusting. I've been talking with some phycologists over at UCSB, and the kelp is adjusting to water temperatures, which is pretty amazing. But if you think about what like Darwin about strong should survive, it makes sense. So yes, it is definitely worrisome. They had a 90% die-off up in this region, actually, up in the Northern California area and Mendocino area, a 90% plus die-off of the bull kelp, which is kind of like another species of like the giant kelp. It's a brown also, which is frightening actually. Then you had abalone are starving. In fact, I think the Fish and Wildlife just shut down next year's recreational abalone diving due to the fact that the abalone is actually starving, which is again frightening. So getting back to the question again, like I said, yes, we're very aware of the water temperature issue, and thankfully the kelp seems to be adjusting, is what I understand. Let's see what else we got here. So the question is, how do you access land, and do you think it's possible to reintroduce life on reefs with kelp farming? And that's a great question. So so the access part's obviously going to be kind of by boat, but do you think it's possible to reintroduce life on reefs with kelp farming? I absolutely do. One of the things that I'm going to start talking with Fish and Wildlife about is the MPA areas, which are marine protected areas. And I think it's a good idea what they try to come up with by putting these marine protected areas. But what I always tell people is if you could imagine going to a mountain and clear cutting all the forest, and then you realize, oh my God, look what we just did. This is horrible. We have to put a fence around this thing to make sure that nobody goes in there so it comes back. Well, it would probably take a century for the trees and everything to come back from that type of devastation. So the same thing goes with these MPAs. What I want to do is I want to go in there and plant kelp, not for harvesting, just for the sake of planting kelp, which will, in turn create an entire ecosystem for the MPA to become even stronger and healthier. So that is definitely a plan to do next with Fish and Wildlife, and see what we can do about that. There's a case study right here. So of pioneering and sustainable sea change with ocean farmer Brent Smith. Somebody gave a link. I actually am part of Green Wave also, by the way. I back on the East Coast, I think about 2 years ago now, and I actually designed and built, at the time, I don't know if it's still the same, but the largest kelp hatchery in the United States for Brent Smith and Green Wave. Let's see here. Any thoughts of Saccharina latissima over macrocystis in terms of ease of farming, return of investment, sustainability for BC, West and Central Coast, etc.? Not really. I mean, right now I'm looking at for the area that we have the farm, the species that are really kind of what I would call dominant in the area is the macrocystis, and but again, we're going to be open to research and open to anybody who has ideas, because we're not going to be able to farm all 25 acres. That's not our goal. And in fact, my wife came up with an amazing idea, is if you go to our website, which is Pharmersea.com website, and go to our contact page, you will see kind of an outline of the way the farm sits. And basically, it's like an upside-down L. It's 12 and 12 acres, and there's a 1 acre parcel that we want to use for a teaching farm. So anybody on the West Coast who wants to see what it takes or how to do this can come out and be able to set up or try to set up a farm to see what it's going to be, because I don't know about most of you, but for me, I'm a hands-on kind of guy. If I could get it in my hands, I can figure this out. So that's one of the things that we're going to be doing with the 1 acre parcel, is using that for a teaching farm. And like I said, it's going to be, the research also is what we're also trying to do. So let's see. It says, Dear Dan, so algae can overgrow coral, which is one of the results of heating and acidification. Why is kelp not a threat to other marine ecosystems just like algae? From what I've seen here, at least on the West Coast, is first of all, we don't have coral, and the kelp forest, because I'm 4th generation Santa Barbara, and I've been diving that coast along Santa Barbara for over 30 years, and the kelp forest that was there 20 years ago was absolutely amazing. It was so thick, so vibrant, and so full of life that it was absolutely incredible. And it's been taking a beating since the early 80s. Some of it's due to the weather patterns, the Niños, and stuff like that. So again, I can't see growing kelp as any kind of problem. The other thing that we're dealing with too along this coast, I'm sure you guys have probably heard about this, is these domoic acid breakouts. Well, it's basically an algae is what this is. And it just happens to be, quote unquote, a bad algae. And if you think about it, it's always been there in nature. It's always been there. But with the kelp forest declining, bull kelp, macrocystis, whatever one you want to do, the competition for that food source, now there isn't any competition for that food source. And that bad algae is able to thrive more. So another kind of, thumbs up for farming kelp is, we're going to try to keep that bad algae from, being so dominant right now. Okay, so let's see here. The question is, Green Wave Ocean Farming Model scoops $100,000 sustainability prize. Okay, I think people were just kind of, let's see, commercial benefited once plaguing oceans. Yeah, this is just some stuff people are sending in some stuff that is pretty interesting stuff that is about Bren and what they're trying to do. Let's see here. Awesome info, great to be here. Are the colder water kelps more nutritious? And the answer is yes. Colder water, it seems like, so I live in Santa Barbara. You get 2 hours north in that colder water, and the kelp seems like it's on steroids. It's incredible. And with that, obviously, you're going to get all the benefits of that, too. And if you get further up north, up into Alaska, that kelp really gets going. And by the way, I want to throw a quick shout out to hopefully I pronounced this correctly. I've been talking with Keo up there in Alaska. He is part of the Tsimshian tribe in Alaska. I hope I pronounced that correctly. And they're looking at trying to do some kelp farming and for their tribe, which I think is absolutely amazing and wonderful that they could do this to help put people to work and help the ocean, and they have a source of food, possibly energy, for them. So I'm 100% in and trying to help these guys out. So hey guys, let's see here. Next question.
1 second.
Sure.
Headphone jack replacement. This should eliminate all that dang pooping once and for all. All right, so pop those in.
Oh wow.
There you go. This is the carousel of headphones.
Well, that's a lot more comfortable too.
Yeah.
Okay, so any thoughts about farming other sea vegetables like wakame, chlorella, dulse, nori, spirulina, etc.? Yes, actually, we do. And just to clarify, so the lease right now that we have is set up to about 5 different species of brown and 1 species of red. Every time you add a species to your lease, it's going to trigger what's called a CEQA. And a CEQA is kind of like a environmental impact study that is. Oh, you having more problems?
With these, not yours.
Okay. Is a study that can cost a small fortune, unfortunately, depending on you. Now, we don't want to farm anything that's non-indigenous, and for a couple of reasons, is that we don't want to have any kind of invasive problem, and the second one is that it would be really difficult to get this through Fish and Wildlife and the other agencies. So we're going to stick with the native species only. And that's probably the best way to answer that one. Sure. So it's in BC, we have considerable kelp biomass depletion because of urchin population explosion due to the lack of sea star predation because of wasting syndrome. So yes, I've heard about this too. So the depletion of the kelp, part of it's the urchin population. Some of the pictures that they've been showing along the north coast here, northern California coast, you would think that it was all due to sea urchins because there's so many of them. But the fact is that that system, the way the system works is that usually you have plenty of kelp. Now the problem was that we didn't see all these urchins because of the canopy of kelp that was there before, but now we're starting to see them because that kelp is not there and they're basically starving. And also, you are absolutely correct about the sea star, which is also a predator, and the other predator of the kelp forest, which really keeps it in balance, is the otter, which we're really kind of hoping that will come back somehow. I know some fishermen freak out about that, but it stabilizes the entire kelp forest. And of course, my wife loves these little guys. Let's see. So what's the most efficient way to harvest kelp while maintaining a healthy population? And basically, sorry if we went over this before. Again, I think it's going to be very species dependent. And then, we are really, really looking forward to working with the geography department at the UC and being able to tell which plants are ripe for harvesting and be able to plant and replace as we go. Yeah, that's our goal on that. Let's see here. It says, is your website called Pharmersea because you believe that kelp can produce good food supplements? Yeah, my wife actually came up with the name, and we do believe that the supplement industry of this stuff is amazing. A lot of people don't realize that the kelp is in your diet right now. I mean, the reason ice cream doesn't turn into a rock in your freezer is because of the kelp byproducts. A lot of these kelp byproducts are in salad dressings and stuff like that. So it's trying to get this palate of this American people switched over a little bit to start including kelp in their diets is going to be a little bit of a challenge. They've been doing this for centuries in Asia, eating the kelp, and the health benefits from it are just absolutely amazing. Let's see. Another question would be, okay, so what effect or impact has your lease or seaweed culture activity caused insofar as localized under your lease, feral sea cucumber population, or densities? Just to be 100% clear, we are still in the permitting process. We have a lease. The lease is set up to grow kelp, and we have the species that grow kelp. Now we're just trying to work our way through Army Corps of Engineers. We will be monitoring all this stuff, though. I mean, I think one of the most important parts of what we're trying to do is data collection to help the agencies and everybody else understand all the benefits of this. So we were looking at what fish counts are going to be before and during the growing season. We're going to be looking at water testing. We're going to be looking at kelp density. Everything we could possibly think of, and of course, welcoming the scientists. I know that Moss Landing is looking forward to coming down and getting into the farm. It's going to be the only farm on the California coast right now that's in state waters. Cali Sea Ranch is growing mussels currently in federal waters, and I know they're trying to get the kelp part of it going too. Okay, let's see what other questions we have here.
One from Dan at the very bottom. What effect or impact your lease seaweed culture?
Yeah, I just did that one.
Oh, great.
Yep. And let's see here. Are there any benefits of farming sea urchin for food or other uses? Yes. So in Santa Barbara, we do have some local sea urchin divers. We're really hoping that they're going to show up, and because you need a little bit of sea urchins out there anyways, but to be able to put people to work. I think the other big thing that about this is, you cannot grow kelp, unfortunately, just for the sake of growing kelp. You have to have some kind of market. And, thankfully for us, my wife has come up with some amazing ways to extract the properties of kelp using no chemicals for a skincare line that she's developed. And again, like I said, you're going to have to figure out what to do with the kelp once you grow it. And we're not doing the food part of it because in Santa Barbara, the species of kelp are not really the kind of kelp that you throw, from the water onto your plate. So there are ingredients from the kelps that we're going to be growing that we're going to be working on to hopefully help supply food industry, pharmaceutical industry, and cosmetic industry is our. Let's see. Any other questions?
Interesting one from Daniel.
Which one's that now?
Right below Carl.
Let's see.
Are you interested in sharing data with Canadian growers in BC is the one.
Of course. Yeah. So the question is, are you interested in sharing data with Canadian growers in BC? I work as an agricultural advisor to First Nations who will be getting into seaweed culture, and there isn't much West Coast commercial culture data available. And the answer is yes, yes. And the way I look at it is that, you know, the ocean is hurting right now, and we need to get as much of these farms going as soon as possible. And we are very open to sharing any kind of data that's going to help get farms up and going and to help this industry. Again, like I said, we're so excited that we have some really awesome schools that are involved that want, as soon as we get going, that want to start doing tests and collecting data, and you know, I'm 100% for that. So, yes, to answer that question, yes. Thank you. Let's see, what else we got here? So,
Francesco.
hmm?
Below Daniel is Francesco.
Oh, okay. Let's see here. Is anyone harvesting the oil rigs that were called Ecomar in the 90s? Is anyone harvesting the oil? Okay, so okay, I know who you're talking about. I actually had a friend that used to work for those in Santa Barbara. And what they do is they go out and to clean the big major pylons that are holding up the structure, they'll go and they'll clean off a lot of the mussels that grow in there and other bivalves. And I don't know today what's going on with that. There is a platform in Santa Barbara called Platform Holly, that's kind of in Goleta actually, that has been decommissioned, and we're trying to see, we're going to start the conversation with state lands as far as trying to see if there's any way we could, you know, what they plan on doing with it, and if we could use that, because it'd be, and it's been, I think it's been inactive now for over 9 months, so it's pretty much creating its own ecosystem right now, and I think it'd be pretty devastating for the thing to just disappear because it's going to kill our stuff. I do think we have to clean it up a little bit to make sure that, you know, one, that nothing's going to leak off it, and to get some of the structure off it that's not going to be used. But it would be an amazing area to do some work, some science work, and even some drying of the kelp that is necessary for this industry. Great question. I'm trying to think if I skimmed over this a little too quickly. There was a question about where can we find some good information studies on blue carbon farming and its impact. Gosh, I don't know off the top of my head. I can follow up with that with an email later, and to give you some of the information where we found it from. Let's see what else. Okay, so somebody wants us to put up the website.
Yeah, it's up right now.
It's up right now? Okay.
Pharmersea.com.
Pharmersea.com, okay.
It's on the chat box for anyone interested.
All right. Okay, somebody wrote in that saying that benefits of sea kelp, nutrients. Sea kelp is a natural source of vitamins B1, B2, C, D, and E, as well as minerals including zinc, iodine, magnesium, iron, potassium, copper, and calcium. I always kind of tell everybody that it is the Superman of all superfoods. I mean, this stuff is amazing whether you put it on your skin or you eat it. Let's see what else we got. Is that you again or me?
I think I'm trying to figure out who it is. It's maybe you. It's like I've switched 4 headphones now.
Oh man, gotta love
technology.
technology, right?
Oh, this. Why don't we pause for a minute and see if that other presentation is ready? Is that?
Yeah, we can do
Because
that.
I think Antoine probably granted permission. So
Okay.
why don't we check your Gmail?
All right.
Okay. So is your Gmail loaded?
It should be.
Okay. Is this was this here? Okay. When we refresh there, let's see if it loaded. If it does, we're good to go. All right. You are ready to rock. So
There's
I'll
that
switch.
one. Oh, okay.
Is this the one?
Yep.
Great. So now
Yep.
we can talk about kind of the nitty gritty.
Okay.
I think people will definitely love hearing about that. So I'm going to switch you to the presenter now. Yeah. All right, everybody. Yeah. Look.
Should we get rid of this for now?
They can't see that.
Oh, they can't see that?
But let me
Okay.
shrink that just for you.
Right.
Good old technology. All right, here we go.
Okay, so this is one of the presentations that I gave in Richmond, I think it was, the Soil Not Oil conference. So like I told you before, I like to call myself a restorative ocean farmer. I've also, my background is in facilities. I had the, I guess, pleasure of and responsibility of taking care of one of the largest seawater systems in the West Coast. The University of California, Santa Barbara has a very large seawater system that they pump, they filter and pump to 5 different buildings on campus. So that's part of the reason where I got some of my skills for working with this stuff. Again, the agencies that you're going to have to deal with when you want to do this are California Department of Fish and Wildlife, California Coast Commission, and U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. Again, like I said before, these are really good people who really want to do the right thing. They're just really struggling with the workload that they have. So one of the first thing I tell people is that you're going to have a lot of patience, a lot of patience. So the couple different systems that we're looking at, there's a Longline System and restorative sea farming methods using Longline. The Longline System is what Brent's currently using on the East Coast, and other East Coast farmers back there are using the same system. It is about 1,000 feet long. So in a nutshell, the way the system works is, and this is why you need to be kind of partnered up, actually I forgot to mention this, you should be partnered up with some type of a lab through some type of UC or CSU over into California. The way that it works is you have divers go out and they, for lack of a better word, they go and find the pregnant leaves of kelp, and from there they bring it to the lab, and then they're able to stimulate to release its babies, and they start growing. Now what they do is they have what they call seed spools, which are basically pieces of pipe with string wrapped around them. And these babies attach to this string, and it's approximately about 250-foot length on each one of these seed spools. And after these seed spools grow, so they start in the lab, and then they get transferred to the hatchery/nursery, where they grow for about 10 to 12 weeks to get to approximately, I thought it was about 4 millimeters, and then they, centimeters, and then they are taken out of the hatchery, carried in water, obviously, and taken out to the lines of the farm. Now, if you can imagine, you have a 1,000-foot, rope in the water, and they pick up and they grab the end of the rope, and they kind of fish it through the pipe. They untie the smaller line on it, and they unwind that smaller line onto the bigger rope, and then they drop it back in the water, and it's kind of like watching paint dry. You come back in 3 months and harvest your kelp. That's what the Longline System is. And there's a few diagrams here as far as the weights that are used, the buoy system, and the one interesting thing is the sugar kelp does not have a floating kind of sac like the macrocystis or bull kelp does. So they have to keep it at a certain level, approximately 7 feet underwater, and as the kelp grows, they have to add a few floats to it. There's more of it. So, and this is a picture, kind of the bottom grid system. We're going to be looking for, obviously, the cleanest ways to do this. We don't want to introduce any plastics or trash to the ocean. That would be a bad thing. So, we're trying to figure out ways to do this. They're going to be the cleanest ways. Currently in the permitting process, we are going to basically put down every system we could think of. That way, we could do experiments with different long line and bottom line systems and see how that goes. And obviously, for collecting data and for helping other farmers out also. And that's basically what the bottom grid systems look like, and what the long line system looks like. You will obviously need to be certified for scuba to do this. You will need to dive in the water and to set some of your gear. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. And of course, people ask me about boat size, and depending on, I guess, how close you are to the farm. You don't need a large boat. For one thing, on a longline system, if you attach the longline system, you could actually pool the farm, which would be a bad thing. So a large boat is not necessary. As long as you're close enough to it, and you don't have such a long boat ride, you can get away with like a 15 to 17 foot kind of Boston Whaler style boat. Is what you could get away with for this long line system. And for some of the stuff that we're doing now, when you get into obviously large production of even macrocystis, then you're looking at these harvesters which come in and basically give it a haircut. Currently, we don't need a lot of product to make our product, which is a good thing. And it's amazing. A little bit of kelp actually goes a long way. So that's basically the presentation as far as that goes. I can get back to some of these questions. I thought there was another one that came in here. It says, okay. So what is the range of ecological criteria for growing macrocystis, such as temps, pH, salinity? I can see if I can blow this up a little bit. Turbidity, current, etc. I'm not 100% sure on all this right now. I'll be working with the phycologist to help me out with this piece of it. I know that the macrocystis likes the water temperature to be, around 60 for the growing periods. I'm honestly, that one I cannot answer. I can probably get back to that question if there's an email attached to it, and find out the answer for you. Okay. Let's see. Do you know of anyone growing nori commercially on the West Coast? Actually, I do. The only one that's actually doing this right now, and is doing it on land actually, is Mike Graham up there at the with the Monterey Seafood, I think it's called, his company. Amazing guy. Good luck in getting in touch with him. The guy's crazy busy. But here's growing it on tanks. So they're tumbling the kelp on shore. So he's doing that. Other than that, that's the only one I know of right now, because I don't think I mentioned it before. Currently, there are 17 bottom water leases in the state of California, and we have one of them, and ours is set up for growing kelp. Ours is the only one set up for growing kelp right now. The other 16 bottom water leases are for oysters and mussels. Okay, so next question is, with all the nuke attack crazy going on, let's see here. This is a very good question about basically using kelp for preventing thyroid cancer due to radiation fallout or anything else that you're around. There was a, I can't remember who told me, there's a really cool story about after, I think it was the bombing of Hiroshima, there was a clinic that was helping all the burn victims just outside of Hiroshima. And these people in this clinic were drinking, miso soup, eating kelp and miso soup. And the kelp has this amazing ability to actually grab onto heavy metals and like that and take it out of your body. Personally, I don't know enough about this, to really be an expert on it, but, from what it seems like this should be added to everyone's diet who is going through any type of chemotherapy also. And then, again, eating it is also a huge preventive for, I believe it's a huge preventive for a lot of the diseases that were seem to be rampant in our society today. Let's see here. Oh, it looks like awesome. Thank you, Daniel, for sending your email. I will get you the answer to the question that you asked. And a reminder from my wife to talk about thalassotherapy. So I don't know if people know what thalassotherapy is, but basically it is treating people, which have been going on for centuries in the French coast, with seawater and kelp for, you name it as far as the ailments. It's amazing. And if you think about it, we are 70% water. We were formed in brine water in our mama's belly there. And, and I get a kick out of the fact that I do believe that, like table salt that's been processed to fit through your salt shaker is probably not very good for you. But sea salt, grinding your own sea salt is amazing and loaded with nutrients, really good for you. My wife, to learn more about thalassotherapy, wrote the only book on thalassotherapy in English in the world. Any other thalassotherapy books that you're looking at would be in French. So I don't know if there's a way to put up the Ama Sea Beauty website.
It's on right now.
Awesome, you're on it. The Ama Sea Beauty website, you will see a link to it for the book. I've got some
Showing up right now.
Coming up, awesome. So it says, let's see here. I have a question about the kelp available on the market. How can we know if we're purchasing kelp that's been sustainably harvested, grown? Are there only a few producers globally that are reputable? And yes, and my wife's going to kill me, but I cannot remember. There's some ladies up north in Mendocino County that are hand harvesting kelps and selling it that way, and they do it in a very sustainable way. The way Mike is doing it is absolutely really clean for the Monterey seafood. He can ship different species of kelp that he grows. They ship it all over the country. He's amazing, and those ladies are amazing up there. Other than that, yeah, I don't know. I would be leery about taking a good look. Right now, we're trying to work with legislation also as far as best management practices and ways that we're doing this to be the safest way of growing it, the most sustainable way of growing it. And I guess what I forgot to mention is that kelp is the most sustainable thing to grow on the planet. I don't have to water it or feed it, which is pretty amazing if you think about it with the water shortage we have going on right now. So unfortunately, this industry is so new in this country that we don't have any kind of guidelines for this about how it's sustainably harvested or grown yet. But that is definitely something that we're working on. Thank you so much for that question, George. Okay. So, where can we find some good information on blue carbon farming? Okay, growing kelp in Gulf areas. Okay, thank you for that email. I got your email. Perfect, awesome. Since there is sugar in kelp, can it be fermented into wine, spirit, or beer? Hey, I say go for it, Daniel. I know that there's been some people trying to do it, and I know there's some people actually on the East Coast that have been trying to do that with certain species of kelp. But yes, you're correct. There is sugar and carbohydrates and protein and micro and macronutrients in beer. But yes, the sugars for fermenting, I don't know anybody who's been successful yet, but I know they're trying to do it I thought there was like a kelp beer actually that somebody, actually I think a kelp beer was produced on the East Coast someplace. Okay.
What about that question from Gabrielle at the top about funding based on carbon sequestration?
That's a great question also. So far, nobody's really, we're going to also approach that with the legislative also, is to see about, ways to get points, ways to get, monies, whatever it is, about doing it because it's such a good thing to do. Yeah, that's definitely on our list of things to work on. I thought there was some stuff going down on the East Coast a little bit at one time, but I'm not too sure where they're at with it right now. But, obviously on the West Coast, we haven't done any of that stuff yet. So let's see. I think there's another question that Gabriel gives was gives an estimation of 1 dry ton of kelp for 1 ton of carbon. And they were asking if that makes sense. Actually, I don't know. I really don't know. I know that, we're getting into this thing. We're actually going to be testing. I'm working with Mike Graham up there on Moss Landing, and we're trying to put together some systems, a tank system out there to start testing, what kind of sequestration is going on with kelp. The only bad, quote unquote, byproduct of growing bivalves is ammonia, which also just happens to be lunch for kelp. So, again, we're trying to get as much data information as possible. And, the amazing thing is there is a lot of data out there, and a lot of this science was done years ago. The farm that my wife currently and I lease has actually been established since 1979. It was established by Dr. Michael Neuschel for Neuschel mariculture, and there is a ton of science that he did on it. And we're trying to go back and find some of the stuff that he did that would pertain to what we're trying to achieve. We also are fortunate enough to have a lot of his work. When we took over the farm, we actually acquired a lot of his paperwork, which is something we haven't had a chance to go through yet, that has a ton of information that has not even been on the web yet. So that's one thing we're looking to do, is try to hopefully get some help to start trying to figure out a way to get this all put on the web. Okay. And you're welcome, Gabriella.
Oh, do you mind switching off your mic real quick? I could do a plug.
Sure. Hang on. Let's see if I got to escape out. I got my thing to. Let's see. How do I escape out of this email thing?
Dan?
Yeah, you know me. This is not my forte.
Oh, good. Oh, good. Practice.
Yeah.
Practice. Oh, yeah. It's like the whole screen. Okay, great. So, shrink that.
Okay, then we can just mute the mic.
All right. Yeah, I'm just going to do. All right, folks. Hopefully you can hear me all right. So basically, I just wanted to pause because I want to say one of you has won a beauty kelp product pack courtesy of Pharmersea and Sea Beauty, and I'll be sending that to one of you guys. But you have to check your email to see who won, and hopefully, like we'll ship it out as soon as this ends, so it can get to you hopefully before your holidays. So hope you're excited. One of you has won this. I cannot wait. I wish I could test these all on me right now. As you see, Dan, I don't know what age he is. He's basically mystical, but he's got better skin than most 20-year-olds. That's the power of kelp. It's really cool stuff. I eat kelp and sushi, and I can't wait to actually use it on skin. So hopefully you're excited for that. So check your email, and everyone's gonna get a replay of this email. Dan, are you cool sharing the presentation as well?
Yeah, fine.
Okay, great. And we'll have the presentation sent out. So just wanted to do a quick shout out to everybody. So just so you can check your email and see if you won or not, and get the presentation and get the replay. So without further ado, why don't we just bring it back to Dan?
Okay, well, we got a little bit of time here. It'd be kind of fun to talk about our product line that we developed also. Again, like I said, my little amazing researching wife started looking into kelp a few years ago. We've been into this business, I think it's been like 5 years now. It's pretty frightening. I was talking to Antoinette about that the other day. It's like, it's been how long? Like I mentioned, we were doing this for 3 years. So basically, you're not going to find anything cleaner. There is a product that we call solution. It's right there. That's fine. Solution, which is, let's see, this one right there. It has like 6 ingredients. I guess we were told the other day, and I love this term, that we are a vertical company. We're vertical because we collect the kelp, we process the kelp, we create our extracts, and then we create the serum, and then we bottle it and we sell it. So completely what they call vertical, which is pretty rare. But anyways, getting back to this serum, I always tease my wife and tell her, you're making me a heroin dealer. I show up to some of these events with these little small 1 ounce or half ounce samples, and people try them. The next time they see me, it's like, do you got any more? Do you got any more? So it's exciting. You will be shocked if you don't have any, if you can't tell the difference. In fact, I dare you to try this stuff, and we will, refund if you're not happy with it. It is an amazing product that is amazing for your skin. She does what we have a store on State Street, which we're going to actually be getting out of here pretty soon. But anyways, we have a store where my wife will have like a mother-daughter come in, and the mother is about my age, and then the daughter, I was in her 20s, and she will do a treatment on one half of, and it is, she just loves watching the expression of the daughter when she starts seeing half her mother's face age just start to disappear right there, right in front of her with one treatment. It's that incredible. And again, I think the other thing that's really cool about what the goal of Sea Beauty was that my wife also wanted to create a as plastic free as possible. It comes in a glass bottle with a metal lid. Unfortunately, we did everything we could to try to find a pump that was metal, but there's no such thing excuse me, on industry right now. That's going to take actually us to try to change that. So it's we do our best because we don't want any plastics to end up in the ocean where everything seems to end up. There was an interesting text I received earlier from somebody we're working with right now. Basically, no matter where you live, the ocean affects your life. Okay, so 50% of the oxygen from photosynthesis is produced in the ocean. That's every other breath we take comes from the ocean. Of the Earth's population, I think it's 44% lives within 100 miles of the coast. 44% of the world's population lives within 100 miles of the coast. 90% of international trade travels by ship. 95% of the ocean is unexplored by humans. That's pretty amazing if you think about it. 95%. And 90% of heat from global warming has been absorbed by the ocean. Some staggering figures, which I thought was pretty fascinating. So the parts about living close to the ocean, I think it's also our responsibility to try to make everything as clean as possible. That's something that, again, like I said, we strive to do. The other products that my little wife has created are amazing bath products also, not just for your skin. We have these, what they call bath bags, which have several species of kelp and salt. We have a other juicy, which kind of serum, which kind of imitates the ocean. I think an interesting fact is that our blood we're like from being the ocean water is almost equivalent to our blood. There was a study done by a doctor that actually took all the blood out of a dog and replaced it with ocean water, and the dog had survived no problem. So we have that Juicy is also an amazing product for your skin. Those are bath products you're seeing with the CT. She has a whole line. I really suggest, if you're interested in looking healthy, is that you go on the website and take a quick peek. Another thing too, my wife thought it was very important to make it so it's affordable for all. Very important. She did not grow up in a rich household, neither did I, and she was really determined to make sure that this is as affordable as possible for everybody, which I think is awesome. Because some of the other stuff out there has, small percentage points of actual kelp in it, and they're selling it for, just huge astronomical amount of money. Again, our product is, any of the products itself are mostly kelp products. It has less than 1.5% of oh gosh, it has 1.5.
Is it what? Salt?
No, gosh, God, this is embarrassing. To stabilize it.
Oh, okay.
Okay, I'm spacing out what it's called for that, but to stabilize. So only 1.5% of actually any ingredient that actually stabilizes the product. The rest of it is all kelp. It's, again, like I said, it's an amazing, very clean product that is really, really good for your skin. Preservatives. Thank you, honey.
So,
Yeah.
hey, you want to do a quick switch?
Sure. Sure. Let me mute.
Yeah.
Yeah, folks. So, yeah, this has been great so far. I want to share the reason that I approached Dan in the first place. Now, living along the coast of California, all you read about is the plight of the ocean, how the reefs are dying, how the kelp forests are dying, how sea lions are washing up on shore, and it's totally heartbreaking. But the idea about kelp farming and ocean farming is one of the pathways for actually restoring the ocean. And Daniel and the folks that he worked with are some of the only folks who I see who are actively doing this work of restoring marine ecosystems and saying it's not too late to just give up and the oceans are gone, that we can, on the scale that we can with these boats, with these ships, like we can create these kelp forests and get them restarted and get these microclimates working again. Because even if you see films like Chasing Coral, they give you the big picture about what's going on in the oceans. You know, corals are dying, but they don't show what can be done to restore them. And this is one thing that can be done to restore marine ecosystems. It's not just everything's dying. It's this is what we can do to help restore it. And I want to announce that we, Sustainable Design Masterclass, we have set aside $10,000 to, in the future, put on an ocean farming workshop. Now, part of this might be earmarked for, we're going to put on a day event towards getting people together to just talk about it, making sure we can access these politicians to make sure it happens. Another part is earmarked for an actual workshop, which is down the line, that to show people how to do this. So we'll be announcing that. I want you guys to just stay tuned and stay, keep your ears open, because we will announce that, and we've got the money set aside to do it. And yeah, I just hopefully for the people who want to move on this, we'll have it set up when it comes time to, help you, work with Dan, work with the folks who are on the West Coast to make something happen. So I appreciate everybody for showing up, because, man, we all love the oceans, and they need our help right now.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I actually try to contain myself. I get a little passionate about when I start talking about the status of the oceans, what we can do about it. I think this is a huge solution piece. If we can get everybody behind it, we have we have data to show that something that you could see from the shoreline. I know a lot of people get worried about that. If you Google map Korea and start looking at what they're doing over there, their systems are so different because they have this really slow moving tide, and you see a lot of that farming stuff. It's so different here along the California coast. You don't of shoreline at all, and we're going to have to do, most of our farming is going to be obviously below the surface, and we're not going to have a bunch of stuff sticking out of the water, other than we have to, by code guidelines, we have to actually mark the farm itself to make sure that nobody comes boating through it. So the amount of buoys that we're going to be using are going to be minimal, and we're going to do everything we can to our best management practices to make sure that we're not doing any type of polluting of the ocean. It's such a beautiful thing to see. I mean, I'm heartbroken sometimes when I see what it looks like compared to just 30 years ago. This is actually a way to do this. We're very much into the restorative piece of this. Again, like I said before, we don't need much for our product. It's the restorative piece really looking at, and really looking to collect data and educate and hopefully get everybody behind this. Yeah, and man, I really do appreciate everybody taking the time to listen to this thing. I'm sorry I wasn't quite as organized as well as I'd like to have been, but it is, anything that I have no problem following with email, and I just hope that that you can start getting behind this. And one simple way to help us out is obviously to buy some of the product. And again, I dare you to have a problem with it. The most sensitive skin people we've ever known are absolutely loving it. We have Twyla, who's a friend of ours that had very sensitive skin. She just loves this stuff. So if you have skin sensitivity, again, I kind of dare you to try this. It's amazing. If there's any more questions, we'd love to field any more questions. I mean, because that's pretty much everything I've got right now.
Yeah. I mean, might take one more questions and then close it out. And if we want, we usually like just if we want to hang out for another few minutes.
That's fine.
Yeah.
That's fine.
All right, folks. Any last questions you got? That may be it. Okay. Carbon. Oh, Daniel's asking about, has anyone used kelp farming as a way to get carbon credits?
Yeah, I think there was some stuff on the East Coast. There's nothing really set up for it right now, and I think that's something we're going to obviously try to work with the legislature. There should be something for good is what this is going to be doing. So I really do hope that we can figure something out through the legislature.
Mute your mic real quick.
Yeah, hang on a second.
All right, everybody. Thank you for sticking around and joining us with Dan and everyone at Pharmersea and AlmaCB to learn about ocean farming. It's one of the most exciting developments about in the ocean because there's just so much unlimited potential here. There's, think about the hundreds or potentially thousands of products that could be made with kelp. So it's incredibly exciting. I encourage you to stay in touch with us. Write me an email if you want to be in touch about future workshops on restorative ocean farming because we're going to start doing something. So let us know. And again, join us for more webinars at sustainabledesignmasterclass.com. We've got in January Elaine Ingham for part 4 of soil restoration. We've got a whole month lined up about water restoration with the new water paradigm, folks. So that's going to be exciting about seeing the possibility to restore microclimates by restoring the small water cycle and restoring the climate in general. So a lot of exciting stuff coming up. Join us at sustainabledesignmasterclass.com. And thanks again for joining us. I'll see you next time. All right.